feel very called to become a member of the Catholic Church.
Love the Catholic Church. It's just the best place to be.
From the studios of EWTN, this is Open Line. In North America, call toll-free 1-800-585-9396. That's 1-800-585-9396. Outside North America, call 1-205-271-2985. You can also send an email to openline@ewtn.com.
You know, sometimes the best laid plans of mice and men, as the poet would tell us, don't exactly work out the way that they're supposed to. You know, Father Mitch, you and I both are, we have a little bit of a reputation from time to time of arriving at the last second for the program.
Yeah.
So you and I were both relatively early today. And because Dr. Anders is not in town, there was no show before us, and we had to get the computers fired up, and we still only got on milliseconds before the airtime.
That's life.
We're not in control, are we?
No, nobody ever puts me in control. With good reason.
Father Mitch is in the house. 1-800-585-9396 is our toll-free number. EWTN's Open Line Wednesday is underway. 1-800-585-9396. If you're outside the United States and Canada, your number is 1-205-271-2985, and we'll put you straight to the front of the line at 1-205-271-2985. You can send an email, openline at EWTN.com, or you can text your question to Father Mitch. Text the letters EWTN to 55000. Wait for a response. Type your first name and your question. Message and data rates may apply. I'm Jack Williams, the lovely and talented Elena Rodriguez producing the program. Your call screeners, Mr. Matt Gubensky, and Jeff Burson handles all of our social media endeavors. Our host, as he is every single Wednesday. Wednesdays here at EWTN are all Father Mitch all the time. Father Mitch Pacwa. Father, how are you?
Fine. Just grooving along.
Just grooving along. Got a little double duty today.
I got more than
TV
that.
side
There's all kinds of stuff going on around here. But let's get to some emails.
Let us.
First of all, Father Mitch, I heard they recently found another Bethlehem and that the archaeologists who found it are claiming that it is the Bethlehem. Is there a chance they are right? Why does it seem so many archaeologists trying to disprove what is currently regarded to be historically true? Bob. Well, Bob, let me see. No, it's not the right one. In a word. Notice how short I could be.
Was there a racetrack there?
No, there was not. It's another town called Bethlehem, and it's up in the Galilee region. And the reason that some of these folks are trying to say, oh, that's the real one, for sure, like, dude, and so, or something along those lines, and it is because, and this is what scholars do in general. They come up with various theories, and they need to do so because only if they come up with new theories can they publish. And, you know, I mean, that's what all of us do in scholarship. We try to disprove that everybody else who ever came before us was wrong, and we're right. And that's why you should read our dissertation and then hire us to take the place of these old fogies. But in fact, it's very clear that the New Testament and also the Old Testament prophecies speak of the city of David, which is Bethlehem of Judah. And the other one is way up in the north in Galilee. So there's no real question about that.
Kind of like there being a Springfield in every state in the union, you know?
There's one in every state?
I don't know about every state.
But there's a bunch.
A bunch of them.
There's a
for
bunch.
Sure.
Bunch of Daytons, bunch of Decaturs, Jacksons, especially in the south. So that's what you have there. All right. In Genesis 19, why do Lot's daughters lay with him and bear sons in fear that there's no one to marry them in the normal way of the world? Did they feel the rest of the world would be like the men of Sodom? Thank you and God bless. Michael. Michael, I don't know that they thought that the rest of the men would be like the men of Sodom, as much as they thought that the rest of the men were dead. That'll discourage you from trying to marry them unless you're on a TV series about dead men walking, etc., or Walking Dead and all that stuff. No, they as often happens when, especially even in our world, when we can get satellite photos of the whole world, but when you are in the midst of a disaster, you feel like, oh, the whole world is just destroyed. Well, it's your whole world. And they did not have much contact outside. So the disaster that they experienced would make them think, well, there are no other guys to marry around here. And, in fact, people generally didn't travel very far. There was some traveling, to be sure, and there were international roads that connected from the mouth of the Tigris and Euphrates all the way to Egypt. But most people stayed in their villages. That was the way it was. So that was something that they just didn't think there were any other guys to marry because the catastrophe around Sodom and Gomorrah was so great that they assumed that there are no more men. So that's why they got that going on.
One more there?
Let's see here. Yes. My husband and I bought a home a year ago and are very happy there. However, a few weeks ago I noticed an upside-down star that was etched into an old wooden phone nook. House was built in 1955, so I hope my description gives you a good enough picture of what I'm talking about. I guess I didn't notice it before, but it struck me as odd that it was upside down and night upright. So I took the internet, did some search, found a few things that is used in modern occultism and other not so good things about it. However, I read somewhere that it isn't inherently evil. Our home was blessed by a priest within 2 weeks of moving in. I feel that God is always looking over us. I forgot to mention that before I even noticed the star, I placed a picture of La Virgen de Guadalupe on a little stand that is in the nook along with a decorative cross. Is there any reason for concern? We just suggest I just cover it up or fill in the holes that make the star. Alexis. Well, Alexis, you could do that. You could just cover it up if you wish. You could sand it down. You know, get somebody, if you have a sander, because it's in wood, so you can just sand it down, and that would probably bring back the wood, and you could stain it again, and it would look better than having something carved in the wood that you're merely covering up. I would go ahead and, deal with, just sanding it, making it look nicer, and keep the image of the Blessed Mother and get rid of that other nonsense.
Just getting started on an open line Wednesday. One line open for you at 1-800-585-9396. That's toll free anywhere in the United States and Canada. 1-800-585-9396. Open line Wednesday with Father Mitch.
I invite people to tune in to Women of Grace Live if they want to be encouraged, if they want to be instructed, if they want to be inspired. These opportunities present themselves not only through what we have to share on the air, but through the many calls that come in through our listeners. I am always amazed at how my own faith is edified through what our listeners share with us. I'm Janet Benkovic, inviting you to join me weekday mornings at 11 Eastern for Women of Grace on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
As an EWTN media missionary, your task is to prayerfully take EWTN to your parish and community through the print and electronic media we provide. Visit EWTNmissionaries.com today and join us in sharing the eternal word with the world.
From EWTN News Nightly in Washington, D.C., I'm Lauren Ashburn with an EWTN News link. More than 200 people have been indicted on felony rioting charges following protests on Inauguration Day. Protesters smashed storefronts and bus stops in Washington, D.C. Hundreds of migrants, including women and children, were rescued in the central Mediterranean Sea. They were discovered by the Italian Coast Guard sailing on a fishing boat, trying to reach Europe. And Pope Francis calls for aid to South Sudan to help civil unrest and famine threatening millions. During his weekly talk, the Holy Father demanded action to get food to victims. The United Nations declared a famine in the country earlier this week, saying that more than 100,000 people are affected. I'm Lauren Ashburn. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and join us this evening for EWTN News Nightly.
This is Bishop John Brungart of the Diocese of Dodge City.
This is Colin Donovan, Vice President for Theology.
This is Father Larry Richards, host of Open Line Thursday. Thanks for listening to EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
This is Open Line on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. If you have a question or comment, call 1-800-585-9396. Outside North America, call 1-205-271-2985 or send an email to openline@ewtn.com.
You know, Father Mitch, I bet when you were a little boy growing up in Chicago, you dreamed of one day being a member of the Society of Jesus and being on the radio in the state of Kentucky, didn't you?
No.
Well, you are.
Oh.
We're excited to welcome another radio
Never
station.
even occurred to me back then.
We're excited to welcome another new radio station, now part of the EWTN radio family. Hello to everybody listening on FM 92.1 WSGJ, serving Bowling Green, Kentucky. Thanks to our friends and longtime affiliate, the Savior Radio Network, for launching another Catholic station in the Bluegrass State. Again, welcome to all our new listeners now hearing us on FM 92.1 WSGJ, serving Bowling Green, Kentucky. They're the newest member of the EWTN radio family. To the phones we go. Not Kentucky, but the great state of New York. Mark is in New York listening on the Station of the Cross. Mark, you're on with Father Mitch.
Hey, Father Mitch, it's great to talk to you.
Thank you very much. So what can we do for you today?
I'm very well. I'm calling from the Diocese of Albany in New York.
Okay.
And we are fortunate to have the Shrine of the North American Martyrs.
Yes, you do. I've been there.
Wonderful. Well, tonight the shrine is going to be displaying several relics from some of the saints, including St. Teresa of Lisieux, a piece of the True Cross, and I believe a piece of a veil that belonged to our Blessed Mother. Now, the attendees are encouraged to bring rosaries and other sacramentals, and we'll have the opportunity to touch our sacramentals to these relics. Mm-hmm. My question is, how does that affect if I bring my rosary and I touch it to the piece of the Blessed Mother's veil, mm-hmm. how does that affect the rosary? And how does that benefit me as a believer?
Okay, now, one of the things, do you remember the story in Acts of the Apostles, chapter 5, when people would bring their aprons and cloths to touch to St. Peter and the apostles, and then go back and touch the sick? Do you remember that?
Yes, yes.
That's why we have what we now call third-class relics. So a first-class relic is the body of the saint. In this case, you're going to be with some of those relics, correct?
Yes, that's right.
A second-class relic is something that belonged to the saint. A third-class relic is something that touches the saint's body. And so that's what you would then have, is a third-class relic along the lines of those cloths that touched St. Peter, and also they did the same to St. Paul. So, and the advantage that you would have is, to have this, way of the contacting, in one sense, seeking the graces that the saint has won. Because the saints do win certain graces and merit, and they intercede for us, and it's it's a little sign of you seeking their intercession. And that's the advantage of it.
Thank you so much, Father. I appreciate your answer. And if you ever get up here to New York, I'll take you to some real hunting in the Adirondack.
Come on. Let's get you up.
All right, take care now.
All right.
Next stop for us, Lake Orion, Michigan. Judy is in Michigan, listening on Sirius XM Channel 130. Judy, what's your question today for Father Mitch?
Hi, Father Mitch. My question's about the dubia. I understand that the Pope has chosen not to answer, but I thought he had to respond. Since he hasn't, what is the next step?
I don't know. I have no idea, but I suspect that the cardinals who presented it can continue to insist that he respond to the dubia. But I don't, I am so far out of that kind of stuff. I don't hang around with those guys. I'm one of the grunts trying to do my job. So I don't know what they would do next. That's why a number of people have asked me to respond to some of these things. And that's where canon law comes into play. And I don't have any background to speak of in canon law. So that's why I would, urge that they go ahead and, take a look and just see what they do. Because, I know, for instance, Cardinal Burke is a canon lawyer, and that's what I would expect them to do. They would check it out and see what they have to do next. But other than that, I don't really know.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, sorry I don't know more, but this is where my ignorance comes into play.
Okay.
All right.
All right, thank you, Father.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
1-800-585-9396 is our toll-free number. Connie is in West Branch, Michigan. We'll stay in the great state of Michigan. She's listening on Barrica Broadcasting. Connie, you're on with Father Mitch.
Thank you, Father Mitch. I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
My grandson was just recently baptized Catholic. His mom is a cradle Catholic, and I am a Methodist, and my son is a Methodist. And, of course, it made no difference to me what he's baptized as long as he's Christian. I was ecstatic. It was a wonderful, wonderful day, except something really put a dagger in my heart.
Oh.
And when it came to communion, even though I'm a Methodist and had been baptized, was not allowed to take communion. And the tears started streaming, and my heart was broken. And I thought, this is an awesome opportunity where I'm with my grandson who's being baptized. My daughter-in-law is taking communion. I'm with the family, and yet I have to sit in the pew. And it just broke my heart.
Yeah.
It hurt. And I just can't imagine that Jesus didn't want me to participate in communion.
Well,
with my family.
Frankly, I would say that he wants you to participate in communion as well. But here's one of the issues that we have to deal with. The Methodist Church does not have the same doctrine of the Eucharist that we do. That it's a different teaching on the Eucharist, and there would be, if we shared that same teaching on the Eucharist, that would be one thing, but we don't. For instance, the necessity of a priest or celebrating the Mass who is ordained by a bishop who's in the line going back to the apostles is a necessary part of our doctrine. And that's not necessary in the Methodist Church. They hold a very different sense of the role of the minister, and they don't see the minister as exercising priesthood, nor do they believe in our doctrine of transubstantiation. As a matter of fact, I'd be very sure that like the Anglicans, from which the Methodists originally came, they may not believe in transubstantiation. And because of that difference of belief and understanding of the Eucharist, it would be an infringement on your conscience to pretend that you believe what we do, and for us to pretend that you believe what we do. We don't. And that's not your doing, and it's not my doing. You and I didn't start it. This goes back quite a ways, and I'm not sure, about some of that. Now, Methodists do share a more common faith about the nature of the Eucharist and the role of the priesthood with a number of other Christian denominations. That would be the case, and that's why there's open communion between you and many denominations. But we have such a different theology that would it would be an infringement of conscience, and that's why. Now, what we do, and I do this on a regular basis, we invite people who are not Catholic. And by the way, just so you understand too, we can and do give Holy Communion to the Orthodox because they share our doctrine, and both on the priesthood and the Eucharist. So we have open, we can receive, for instance, if they are in a place where there is no Orthodox church, then we certainly would be willing to give them Holy Communion. Just so long as they are willing to say that they don't hate the Pope, because that's mostly what splits us up. But with when the Protestant Reformation came along, I believe a good deal of Calvin's doctrine was picked up in the Anglican Church by Cranmer and others, and placed into the 39 Articles of Faith, and that informed the doctrine of John Wesley, who had been an Anglican priest, and so that change of theology is something a change of faith in the Eucharist. That's what did that. Okay, so yeah, I wish that we didn't have those breaks. I feel hurt and it's painful because I went to a Methodist seminary to get my PhD, but I couldn't receive communion there. They might have given it to me, but it was against my church's teaching to receive it. So I would pray with them, happily, but I couldn't receive communion there.
Is that helpful, Connie?
I think that gives a really negative information for my grandchildren to look at Grandma, and she cannot participate in communion because she happens to have a different doctrine. I guess I feel like my love for my Lord and my communion with them is just as sincere as any other Catholic person's would be.
It's not your sincerity that's at stake. I don't doubt your sincerity. And taking umbrage at this is not, the issue. Again, you and I didn't start this. And so your sincerity is not a question in my mind. But it's the doctrine that you hold. That's the difference. And, these are the choices that our ancestors made. And, by splitting from Catholic doctrine, they split from us in a lot of other ways. That's certainly certainly something to deal with.
1-800-585-9396. Open Line Wednesday with Father Mitch Pacwa.
Watch Raymond Arroyo, Father Mitch Pacwa, Mother Angelica, the Daily Mass, and EWTN Nightly News anywhere in the world for free. Cut the cord. Visit EWTNapps.com and start streaming today.
Hey guys, where were you when you had your deepest conversations about God and faith and life? Well, if you're like me, you were probably sitting up till all hours drinking coffee in an all-night diner with your best friends. Hi, I'm Deacon Jeff Drzymski, inviting you to relive that experience right here in the luxurious corner booth of the Catholic Cafe.
The Catholic Cafe, Saturdays at 4 p.m. Eastern and Sundays at 5 a.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio. Live truth, live Catholic.
It's time for Family Man with Dr. Gregory Popchak.
It isn't often that popes give parenting advice, but at a recent meeting of the Pontifical Council for the Family, Pope Francis did just that. And what was the tip? Waste time with your children. As moms and dads, we're like latter-day Marthas from the Bible, so busy with many things, we often forget to choose the better part of simply hanging out with our children and just being. Taking a walk, playing catch, gathering dolls for a tea party, wrestling on the floor, playing dress-up, just being silly are skills that teach parents and children the joy of living. As Pope Francis points out, the best way to learn that life is a gift, that relationships are important, and that it's people, not activities, that matter, is to simply be willing to waste time together. When we waste time with our children, we're not really wasting time at all. We're simply putting in the time that keeps our children's hearts from wasting. I'm Dr. Greg Popchak, but you can call me Family Man.
To discover more ways faith can enrich your life, visit CatholicCounselors.com.
This is Bishop William Medley of the Diocese of Owensboro.
This is Al Cresta, host of Cresta in the Afternoon.
Hi, I'm Archbishop William Laurie, the Archbishop of Baltimore, and you're listening to EWTN Radio.
This is Open Line on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. If you have a question or comment, call 1-800-585-9396. Outside North America, call 1-205-271-2985 or send an email to openline@ewtn.com.
If you get a busy signal, keep trying. We'll get to as many folks as we can before the end of the hour at 1-800-585-9396. We have a text from Noe in Nebraska, Father Mitch, and they want to know why Catholics don't immerse during baptism. Both my children were immersed by Jesuits, I might add.
There you go. And that's just going to say, Noe, who says we don't immerse? What we don't do is say that immersion is the only way to baptize. We permit people to pour water, that's normal. You can also sprinkle water on somebody, or you can immerse, because the word baptizo doesn't mean immerse. A good example of that would be in 1 Corinthians 10, verse 1 and 2, when it says that the people of Israel were baptized in Moses at the sea. Now, I don't know if you've noticed this, but the people baptized into Moses at the Red Sea didn't get wet. The only ones who got immersed were the Egyptians, and that wasn't such a good thing for them. Good for Israel. They escaped. But, so baptized doesn't mean immerse in Greek. It can mean waterlogged, which I also don't recommend that you do to babies or anybody else. But in Catholic Church, you can use immersion, but you don't have to. All that's required is that the water flows. That's the point that's required.
Next stop, Ardmore, Oklahoma. Charles is in Ardmore, listening to EWTN on Sirius XM Channel 130. Charles, you're on with Father Mitch.
Hello, Father Mitch.
Yes,
I have a question about the translation of the Fifth Commandment. And I have a Jewish Bible translated by Jews in English. It says, "Thou shalt not murder."
Yeah, that's
RSV says, "Thou shalt not kill."
Yeah, I'd go with the Jewish translation myself. And here's why. The word for that commandment is al tirtzach, do not murder. There are 3 words for kill in the Old Testament. One is hemit, which means cause to be dead. Okay, and that's oftentimes used for execution and some other things. And then there's also harag. Oh, and I forgot another one, katal, that those words can be used in battle, execution, the criminals, number of ways. But the word used in the commandment, ratzah, means to murder or kill by stealth. So murder is more appropriate. It's not just plain killing. Does that help?
That does help a great deal. I was just curious why RSV and New Americans do not use the murder instead of kill.
Yeah, I don't know either. And
Okay.
I oftentimes correct that when I'm dealing with that verse, because it is something that is a little confusing. And, I like, again, to be a little more precise. And the word ratzah occurs fairly rarely. Now, I was just looking up that the, let me see here. The Greek word phoneuo can mean to kill or murder. And the Latin word occides, I think, means kill. I think it's a little more general. But murder is more precise.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Next up is John. He's in Cincinnati, Ohio, listening to EWTN on Sacred Heart Radio. John, what's your question today for Father Mitch?
Hey, Father Mitch, how you doing this afternoon?
I'm fine, thanks.
You answered my question about same-sex marriage. You probably don't remember. I called back on that a while ago.
Uh-huh.
What is your opinion on different races or different denominations marrying each other? And what do you think, let's say, if the woman, let's say, was 10 or 15 years older than the spouse, provided the spouse is like the man is over 18? Because a lot of people don't think the woman should be older than the man because he's boss, he's head, he's the
That sounds like a young man's thought that he's the boss.
Yeah.
Wait till he actually gets married. Here, first of all, in terms of mixed race, we are absolutely against mixing people of the human race with non-human races. All right? If they're not human, they cannot get married to each other. But as far as belonging to the human race, any member of the human race can marry somebody from the human race. So is that what you meant by mixed race? People who are non-human?
I guess what I'm saying is blacks and whites or...
Oh, they're human race people. What are you talking about? That makes no difference. Those are all human race people.
About dogs and things like that. Or...
Yeah, dogs. No dogs, no cats, no pigs, no horses, none of that.
I understand that.
Yeah. It's got to be human race.
Okay.
And blacks, Far East Orientals, subcontinentals from India, Pakistan, people, Aboriginals from Australia, Native Americans, those are all human race people. So that's all fine.
And what was the one about the woman being older?
Oh, here's the thing. I feel sorry for her because it just means that she's going to be a widow longer. Because women as a group tend to live longer than men anyway. I don't think that having a man older or younger is the issue. I've known folks of the age gaps varying quite a bit. The issue, I think, has to be more about the maturity level of everybody. And another thing about the difference between men and women, overall, women tend to mature more quickly than men. that shows up as children, and there are certain things that, in terms of going through stages of life, that happen a little bit faster in women than men. And so that disparity is not so much about authority, but about maturity as far as I'm concerned. But if they have a maturity between them that they can deal with, and that they are able to cope with those differences in maturity, then there should be no problem. Though I've another point I oftentimes counsel older men about, especially men who are toward the stage of midlife crisis. And some of those guys become very foolish, and they think that they would rather be with a woman who is 20 or more years younger than they. And that sounds fine theoretically until you get to the point where you have to talk to each other. And that gap in maturity appears. And that's more of a problem. And so, and it's usually at that point that the man realizes the young woman's immaturity, and he sometimes, God willing, also realizes his own foolishness. Having a spouse with whom you can share levels of maturity and share interest is very, very important.
Next stop, the great state of Virginia. Benny is in Virginia, listening on Guadalupe Radio. Benny, you're on with Father Mitch.
Hello, Father Mitch. How are you?
Fine. What can we do for you today?
Father, I have two questions. The first question is, with regard to the 7 vices, we associate these vices with certain demons, like, for example, envy with Leviathan, anger with Satan.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, for the virtues, do we have a corresponding association with angels, like named angels or
no, not so much that I know of. I've not even seen much, if anything, about associating the vices with specific demons. That's not something that I've seen written down.
That sounds like maybe more of a non-Christian spirituality.
Well, not necessarily. No? It can also be something that might go back to one of the fathers or one of the medieval theologians. That kind of categorization of the virtues was especially popular in the Middle Ages, and some of it goes back to the fathers, like St. Gregory Nazian, or St. Gregory of Nyssa. St. Gregory of Nyssa might. I don't know if he has anything on that or not, but the medievals very well may. See, that's more what I would associate it. And I don't know about Dante having any of that, but I'm unaware of any association of specific virtues with specific angels. Now, sometimes we have saints who are associated with being good at helping with certain vices and helping us overcome them. That is not to increase in them. The demons would want us to increase the vice. The saints help us overcome them. And so you can look up patron saints for various issues. That you might see more.
Thanks so much for the phone call, Benny. We are called to be in the world, but not of the world. So a lot of times we need to kind of know a little bit about what's up with pop culture. And we've got a great tool here at EWTN, and it's Church Pop. It has features and online Christian content that's fun and inspiring every single day. It's the newest member of the EWTN family. You can find it on Snapchat, Instagram, and on the web at churchpop.com. So Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, we go. David is in Oklahoma City, listening on Oklahoma Catholic Broadcasting. David, what's your question today for Father Mitch?
Hello, Father Mitch.
Hey, what's up?
Father, I have a question on the authorship of the Gospels. Mm-hmm. I know that there's, like in the New American Bible, they kind of question that. I was wondering what your view is on that in light of, plenty of evidence from the early fathers that they thought that it was the people, the apostles.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I go along with the fathers. the theories of somebody else than Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John composing those Gospels are, based on, very, very hypothetical approaches. All the evidence is that, as a matter of fact, there's no disagreement among the fathers that Matthew wrote Matthew, Mark wrote Mark, Luke wrote Luke, and John wrote John. There's no variation on that until the modern era. There's a young man from down at he's teaching at the seminary in New Orleans. A young scholar. His name slips my mind. He's very, very good.
Brent Petrie?
Brent Petrie, thank you.
Yes, I've read him.
His book, one of his books on the Gospels, is dealing with this guy named Bart somebody or other who is, coming, saying, well, we don't think this. What do you mean we don't think? You don't.
You got a frog in your pocket?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. So, but this is something that, Brant does a very fine job of laying out that the traditional authorship really doesn't have much of a challenge. And, Brant is not just being a crank or something. He's doing some very good scholarship looking at the earliest fathers of the church. So I was very impressed with his arguments.
Is that helpful, David?
Point, Father, that there is not one extant manuscript that does not have the names of the authors of that. So they always say, like in the introduction to the New American Bible, they say the original manuscripts didn't have those names attached, but he says there's not one manuscript that is in existence that doesn't have the names
exactly attached. That's what I mean by these being very hypothetical. All the copies we have of the Gospels give the names of the evangelists. And these go back to the 2nd century. When Marcion tried to exclude Matthew, Mark, and John from the New Testament, the Pope excommunicated him because they were already aware. And that's about 141, 142. I think it was Pope Pius I who excommunicated Marcion. And as I said, I talked about that in my very first show with Mother Angelica. I said not only did Pope Pius excommunicate Marcion, but so did Marcion's father, because he was the son of a bishop. Now, Mother did a double take at that point, because I think she heard son of a bishop being said too quickly, and she thought I said something else. I don't know what was on her mind.
Thanks, David. Appreciate the phone call. 1-800-585-9396 is our toll-free number. Still time for your phone calls at 1-800-585-9396. Bill's in Lafayette, Louisiana, listening to EWTN on Christ Our King Radio. Bill, what's your question today for Father Mitch? Bill, you there? Let's put Bill on hold. We'll try him in just a moment. Instead, we'll go to Crystal in the great state of Idaho, listening on Clarkston Catholic Radio. Crystal, you're on with Father Mitch.
Hi, Father.
Hello, Crystal.
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
Yes, ma'am.
My mother passed away on February 8th.
Oh, I'm very sorry. I'm sorry to hear that.
Me too. And she only had... She had very little, a little tiny bit of money. I mean, I'm talking, very little, a few $1,000s. And she told me for that to help my brother and sister because they've been struggling in life, and she's been helping them financially. She tried to get a life insurance policy, and it was too soon, so it's not going to pay out. It was $25,000, and I think somewhere between all of that and money, she had intended that to be to bury her. And I know she would have preferred full body burial, but my aunt says that when they talked, she wouldn't want me to incur the cost out of my own pocket. And I had to make the decision. it fell to me, and I talked to my priest, and he was so good. He was so helpful. He listened, and after everything, I told him, my husband and I have a little in savings. It would have taken about a third to about a half to full body bury her. We had to delay her burial until May because her fiance couldn't come back until then. Mm-hmm. And I've arranged to have her buried with my brother. His ashes have been at her house. We know that we need to bury them in the Catholic cemetery. And but despite that, it would still have taken about a third to a half of our savings. And I kept struggling. My priest was, after listening, he was very good, and he tried so hard, and he said, after listening to everything, I think you're in the clear to do. My whole family recommended the cremation. They felt that that's what Mom would have wanted. And I know that the church permits it, but I know that they prefer that church earnestly recommends the pious custom of burying the bodies of the dead. And I kept struggling. I mean, I signed the papers to do the cremation, but I kept feeling like God would have had me. Where was my trust in Him? That why didn't I use my savings to bury her and then trust that He would replace it? But I went ahead and signed the papers, and then her cremation was delayed this past weekend, and it really started getting to me, and I thought, okay, I just need to go ahead with it. I need to take that step of faith and just use our money. It's scary. We don't have retirement or things like that, but I just, and then when I called yesterday to start the ball rolling, it was too late. And she's been cremated, and I have her burial and her funeral mass scheduled for May. They'll be buried in a Catholic cemetery, her and my brother's ashes together. But, Father, I'm just struggling. I couldn't sleep last night. I'm just feeling God had wanted me to do the full-body burial, and I didn't do it.
Well, here, Crystal, you got a couple things going on. Of course, your own grief. You're obviously still in great pain because this is your mom. And you obviously love her. There's great financial difficulty. We had the same situation with my father. My mother, we were able to bury back in Michigan, where she had died there. And, we could afford a burial. My dad had later on moved, he died a few years later, he had moved to California. And he could not afford it either. Burial in California is extremely expensive. And he so he had to be cremated. And so that's what we had to do. Sometimes that's why the church understands the role of cremation. We like burial because it reminds us of the resurrection of the dead. But those who are cremated will also be resurrected fully from the dead. That's not going to stop our Lord from their resurrection. And, there's just the situation that the financial strain was very great on your mother and your siblings and yourself. A lot of people are in that kind of situation. That's why the church allows it. You can, even before the funeral, what you may want to do is simply go and have Mass offered for your mom at your local parish, where you can be there even before the funeral celebration with your brother's ashes, and before the burial. You can do that well before that all starts. It sounds like your pastor is a good man, and he would be happy to do something like that with you. And like I said, now, and here's where I did put my foot down. My dad told me to scatter his ashes in the Pacific Ocean. And I said, no, I swim in that ocean. I'm not putting your ashes in there. I'm going to bury them in a proper place. And so I did. I buried them next to my mom. So, in the cemetery. And, a small town, they didn't even charge us. That's just a nice thing about a small town. In California, it's all very expensive. So, no, don't you fret that. You continue to pray for the repose of your mom, and you and your siblings just keep on helping each other. That she would definitely love very much.
God bless you, Crystal. You will be in our prayers and the prayers of all of our listeners
Absolutely.
as well. To Pensacola, Florida we go. Dolly's in Pensacola, listening on Guadalupe Radio. Dolly, you're on with Father Mitch.
Hi, Father Mitch. I'm a fellow Pittsburghese. Started out in Homewood and ended up in East End.
Well, I've never lived in Pittsburgh, you know.
Well, I thought you were. Oh,
that's Father Larry.
Rich? Yeah.
That's Father Larry. I know. All of us guys dressed in black look alike.
No. Well, I apologize. I was thinking you and
I don't find Pittsburgh offensive. It's okay.
I thought you two
it's a nice town.
Are my favorite priest on the radio.
Oh, sure. Now you change the story. Can't even remember who I am. Go ahead. What's your question, Dolly?
Well, the question is, I'm so glad I just follow after this lady who just recently lost her mother.
Yes.
Of my age, I'm trying to get my ending ready so that my family doesn't have to, less for them to do. I'm already an organ donor on my driver's license. Mm-hmm. I understand that is okay with the Catholic Church.
Yeah, sure.
I understand cremation. But my question now is whole body donation that would be for educational purposes. Is that allowed by the church? Because I know I need to respect my body.
Yeah. Yeah, Dolly, it is acceptable to the church. As a matter of fact, it's something that, the church recognizes as a very charitable act, that you're helping train medical doctors, and sometimes it helps in research for various medicines and things. I had as roommates a couple of medical students when I was at Vanderbilt, and they of course, they operated on a cadaver through their first year. And this is something that is totally acceptable. And, what you just may want them to do, and they did this at Vanderbilt, they were very respectful at the end of the year in burying all those bodies. That they treated them quite respectfully, and they weren't trashed or anything like that. That's one of the things that you want. Okay.
God bless you, Dolly. Appreciate the phone call, Father Mitch. We are flat out of time. Would you leave us with a blessing?
Sure. May the Lord bless you and keep you all, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
I'm sure they love you in Pittsburgh, too.
I like Pittsburgh.
On behalf of our host, Father Mitch Pacwa, our producer, Elena Rodriguez, call screener, Matt Gabensky, and our social media manager, Mr. Jeff Burson, I'm Jack Williams. Thanks so much for taking a little time out of your Wednesday to join us on Open Line. Back at it tomorrow. Father Larry Richards in the house, talking the new evangelization. Until we get together tomorrow with Father Larry, God bless.